So first, I just want to extend my gratitude for the invitation to, excuse me, to meet with you today. Um, the topic that I'm going to discuss is a recent advancement in the United States that potentially could impact the insects as food and feed sector globally. I want to recognize that the efforts of what I'm going to discuss are the result of my colleagues, Christine Picard at IUPUI, it's a university in Indiana, Heather Jordan at Mississippi State, myself at Texas A&M, and Cheryl Pryor, who's serving as the liaison for the center. The Center for Environmental Sustainability through Insect Farming is supported through the National Science Foundation, which is one of the larger, probably the second largest funder of research in the United States. And the purpose of this center is to link agriculture or insects as food and feed with industry. One area that's lacking substantially in industry is educated individuals that understand the research that is needed. So there is a void in that area right now. So one of the purposes is to help create the workforce for future companies developed in this sector. So the CEF, which was created last year, so it's very new. It was a 3-year process. So it took Christine, Heather, and I 3 years to develop the center. There are 3 different goals. The first is we recognize that current agricultural practices are not sustainable, and alternate sources of protein and energy are needed to position. It says the United States, but really the global community at the forefront of addressing local and global food and energy security issues. A sustainable method for producing high value protein while remediating organic waste is essential to the long-term health of ecosystems and agriculture. So we're really focused on trying to diversify agriculture, stabilize economies, grow economies while protecting the environment. The vision for the center is for the industry to be successful, specifically in sustainable delivery of alternate protein sources, but also diversifying the industry. If you look at the insects as food and feed sector, the 2 key outputs right now are the insect biomass and the residual material, the frass of the insect. But we believe that the industry can diversify substantially, and this will lead to greater stabilization and opportunity for the industry. The mission is to bridge industry and academia. If anyone has worked with academia, then you know that it is quite expensive to do research with them. And when you do research with the university, they typically own the research and you only have access to data generated from that one project. So we want to bridge industry and academia to develop novel methods for application with insects as food, as feed for livestock and pets, but food for people, soil amendments, and new innovations. So this is kind of the vision of the center. This program that was started by the National Science Foundation is quite old. I say it was founded over 50 years ago, and it's one of the most successful programs in this funding agency's history. There are 3 partners that come together through the center. I mentioned industry, I mentioned universities, but also the government, and that's where our funding agency comes to play. The mission of this program, which is called the IUCRC, which is Industry University Cooperative Research Centers, is to leverage the talent and resources of the universities and the industry and government to generate advances in technology and enhance industrially relevant workforce training for researchers. So again, when we work with industry, they pose a question to us or a concern. Our job as leaders of the center are to find the people that can do the research. So any company that's out there will probably start an R&D arm, so a research and development arm. But that again is quite expensive because you have only so many employees that can do the research. As far as the return on investment, what has been determined is that the industries receive a return on their investment of 42 to 1. So for every dollar that's contributed by industry, they receive a return of $41 on top of their $1. So it's quite productive. And these centers, as I mentioned, have been in existence for over 50 years. Some of them run independent of NSF now. They're completely separate. The goal is to really focus on this middle ground here in terms of technology readiness. There's early stage research. We try to advance it and test it and then let industry use it. So we try to find solutions to the concerns that industry partners have so that they can implement it. Now, implementation of these findings can be anything from technology, obviously, but it can also be developing the data that allow for the EU or the US regulatory bodies to expand the opportunities for our industry. Right now, there are 3 sites in our center, as I mentioned, Texas A&M, IUPUI, and Mississippi State. We at my university are really focused on production optimization, but we also do feed trials. So we work with researchers in poultry science and aquaculture to do trials related to those industries, but we can expand to include pet food. IUPUI is focused on genetics and genomics, and Mississippi State is focused on microbiology and quality assurance. That's kind of the silos that we have in place right now. But when we develop projects, projects cannot be isolated to a single university. So what we are challenged with are what we are asked to do is develop projects that can work across the different sites. And when we develop these projects, the industry that's partnered with us, they have the opportunity to be part of the research team. So we have mentors from industry associated with each project. So as we work on this research, industry is engaged with us constantly. So it's a consistent transfer of information from the university to the industry. On top of that, we submit quarterly reports on the research. We have 2 meetings every year with the center. The next meeting is coming up in November. And if there's industry that's interested in learning more about the center, definitely email me and we can get you linked up. Because industry partners that are not part of the center can attend one of our meetings at no cost to them in terms of attending the meeting. They have access to all the information we're discussing about project development, engagement with industry, and it gives you a chance to learn how the center operates. So why would an industry partner join the center? I mean, that's a logical question. So obviously research through the center supports scale growth of the insect agricultural sector. So we can actually accelerate the process of discovery to allow you as a company to expand and grow safely and effectively. We have aquaculture companies that are participating in research discussions with us, and we can develop the data that, as I mentioned, lead towards regulatory questions being addressed. Diversification of the industry, rather than just producing the whole insect, we can harvest components of the insect and thus increase the value of the insect itself. We can look at how to, 1, produce a product that's safe from pathogens, but also how we can use microbes isolated from the insect to make the process more efficient. For example, Dr. Jordan and I have done work in the past where we could accelerate black soldier fly development by 20% by just adding a microbe to the system. And again, it's a big return on investment. A company that joins the center gets to date with ours, because we're only a year old, is about 18 to 1. A company that joins the center would pay a fee. That fee is $25,000 or $50,000. And that company would serve on the industry advisory board. That's where you work with all the other companies and make recommendations on research. But for that investment, you have access to all of the data that are generated. So for example, this year we're working on 8 projects that are quite diverse. But each industry partner gets access to all of the data, every bit of it. We also can use the center to go after other grants where we can link with other universities in the world. So for example, if there's a company in Italy or some other part of the EU and they're linked with the university and they join the center, there's ways that we can link with those universities overseas and have individuals from those universities come to our universities for training and participation in the research, which they then return to the host nation, the home nation. So it helps get that expertise back into the community where it's needed. It's not just within the university. So again, on the left, you'll see the membership fee. If a company joins the center, they actually, if a company joins the center, they get access to all the previous data as well. So anything we generated in the first year, you would have access to. One thing to note is that these are the companies that are part of the center at the moment. And what you'll see is that many of these companies are not in the United States. They're quite global. And that's important to recognize because we, while being in the United States, are approaching this as a global entity. You'll also recognize that there are some companies here that are global in production. Mars Corporation, Tyson. That can be quite intimidating because you're thinking, how do I compete with companies of that size? Well, that's the beauty of the center. No one is treated any different. Everyone has the same influence as any other company in the center. So regardless if you're a startup or a medium-sized company, you have just as much influence as the big companies such as Mars or Tyson. With that said, some of the things that the industry advisory board can do besides making recommendations, they also can have projects evolve. So projects can be presented, industry can make recommendations, the projects are revised and focus more on what the industry wants. That's important to us because we want to generate data that you need. It does us no good to generate data that we want to generate. So we really focus on producing the data that the industry wants to see generated. On top of that, when you make recommendations of what research needs to take place, we take this very seriously. And I'll give you an example. We had our first fall meeting November of last year, and a topic of interest came up. Within 2 months, we had 19 research faculty on this topic in a meeting with the industry advisory board discussing what needed to be done. We now have 4 projects that are being presented next month at the next CEF meeting on this topic. So we listen to the industry advisory board, we get the researchers, we develop the projects, and we get them implemented. Now with the next slide, one thing to recognize is this is old, obviously. This is related to the Insects Feed the World conference that was in Quebec City. We held our meeting in conjunction with that. So the CEF meeting was at this particular meeting in Quebec City. The next one is the first week of November, and it's in Indiana, in Indianapolis. But if companies are interested in joining this meeting, if you email me, you can attend it virtually. I would put you in touch with Cheryl Pryor, the center liaison, and you could meet with them and meet with her and discuss how to attend this meeting. So with the center, it's just beginning. It's in its infancy, but it's expanding quickly. We have 3 other companies join the center this year, that are planning to join the center this year. We are global, representing South America, Asia, Europe, and the United States. Obviously, we want to expand to include other regions such as Australia, but the center is growing quickly. It could have an impact on you as a company if that's what you're pursuing. It can have an impact on you if you're a researcher by collaborating. And it is truly a remarkable center. It's amazing what we can do. So that's 15-minute overview of the center. I think at this point, I'd like to open the floor for questions.
Qualcuno ha delle domande, se riesco. Qualche domanda che riguarda il centro di ricerca? I think we're not at this stage, I think. Well, thank you so much, Jeffrey, for your presentation.
So I believe I had 30 minutes. I wanted to give time for questions, but that's okay. But while I'm here, are there any questions about black soldier fly? Because I've been working with black soldier fly for 24 years, almost 25 years. Do you have any questions about black soldier fly production?
Ha delle domande specifiche sulla mosca soldato, perché Jeffrey è un esperto della mosca soldato, ci ha lavorato 25 anni su questo. Quindi non so se qualcuno dei tecnici o meno tecnici. Well, sorry, Jeffrey, probably our audience is agricultural. We are not so much in entomology.
Well, I mean, if I could see the audience, I would just ask, are any of you wanting to produce black soldier fly as part of agriculture? What do you want to achieve by attending this meeting? Because if I can help, I want to. If you're in the agricultural sector, be glad to talk about it. One thing I will say is that if you are in agriculture, what we're seeing is the black soldier fly should not be seen as a competitor with agriculture. It should be seen as a partner of agriculture. The reason being is that through the black soldier fly, as you've seen in previous presentations, it can be used to harvest or recycle organic waste. So we can create a more circular economy with the black soldier fly in traditional agriculture. So it brings a lot to the table in terms of protecting the environment, but also diversifying the economy. So I just wanted to put that out there.
There's a question.
Okay.
Può venire qua perché non sento.
Devo dire, qualunque ora inizia, poi Carol termina comunque alle 16 perché non impegna seguente. Quindi ora siamo già.
Era solo un esempio nella sì. A very quick question, because we have another presentation and the speaker can't stay very much longer.
Una domanda molto pratica. Avendo 10.000, 100.000, 1 milione di mosche soldato, quanti chili di farina secca si possono produrre al giorno?
I don't know if you grasp the question. It is based on the waste you have. If you have 10,000, 100,000, a million black soldier flies, what are the sizes of dry flour you can produce?
Right. So I would say that if we consider
meal, obviously.
Right. So, I mean, a couple points on that. What you feed the insect impacts the quality of the insect. So if you're feeding a high quality diet, you can get a high quality insect. The beauty is that what I define as quality is very broad. The black soldier fly can digest practically anything organic and produce a quality product. As far as scalability, I mean, some basic numbers, 40 grams of black soldier fly eggs to digest 1 ton of material. So if you're working 100 tons a day, then you need to be producing basically 4 kilograms of black soldier fly eggs every day just for digesting the waste, if that's at 100% hatch. That's approximately 400 cages. So each cage is 2 meters square in footprint. So you can imagine how large that facility would be for a 100-ton per day facility. But yes, you can use it to digest this waste. You can industrialize it. You would end up with a facility 10,000 square meters probably, but you could do 100 tons of waste per day.
100 tonnellate di farina, 100 tons of flour, or 100 tons of waste?
So if you do 100 tons of waste a day, you're going to generate probably, depending on the material, obviously, but in general, 100 tons of waste a day will generate about 10 tons of dry insect and about 30 tons of frass or residual. And when I say 100 tons per day, it is per day. So you're talking about, 3,000 tons of insect biomass, dry insect biomass per year. A little more than that, 3.5, so 3,500 tons per year. And you're looking at probably, 3 times that in terms of the frass that's produced.
Frass non è prezzo, ma è come si dice, letame.
Senti, cos'è frass? esattamente?
Frass è letame, lo scafo. Sì. Okay, I think I got to move on to the next presentation because Carol is leaving. Oh, there is one question more, but we have the next presenter who is leaving. So,
Okay. All right. Well, I will let you go. Thank you again for the opportunity, and I wish you all the best of luck.
sorry, there's just one very, very quick question.
Oh, okay.
Allora, in tema di benessere animale, anche questi sono animali. Come ci poniamo nei confronti delle organizzazioni che ne tutelano il benessere?
In terms of animal well-being, these are also animals. What approach do you have?
Yeah, that's a great.
Associations, animalistic associations.
Right. I mean, that's a great question. And if we look at what's happening in the EU, we recognize that the five, I can't remember what it's called, the 5 criteria for evaluating the animal to make sure that it's being humanely treated is important. And it's an interesting aspect. I gave a presentation on this at Insecta in Germany, and what I found is that if we treat the animal humanely, the process can be optimized and we get greater production. It makes sense, right? Treat the animal well, we get greater production. So we are working on that, but there's 2 things to consider here. One is what is considered humanely. So we have to understand the insect and its biology so we can then define what would be considered appropriate animal welfare. So that's a research side, and we're working on that. A great person to contact is Megan Barrett. She's very focused on animal welfare. I've collaborated with her on some on a paper and some research. But there's ways to do this and be humane. We're not talking about anything what I would consider extraordinary. I think it's very basic. There was a question about my email address. I'm going to put it in the chat. So if you want to email me, you are welcome to do so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jeffrey.
It's my pleasure. And again, I just want to say thank you for the invitation, and I wish you all a wonderful afternoon.
And we are going to share your contacts and this presentation video as well. So
Sounds great. You have a wonderful day.
okay, you too.
Bye-bye.
Allora, la prossima presentazione è